Hey guys, this is my interview with Craig Reucassel, who hosted the hit show War on Waste and whose series Fight for Planet A, Our Climate Challenge, coming out tomorrow. I hope you enjoy. Congratulations on War on Waste. That series highlighted some serious issues with Australia's waste management, and as a result, change seemed to happen. Was it hard to develop the show, or did you have lots of support?
Well, War and Waste was actually initially done in the UK, or there was a version of it done over there. And I had a lot of support in that. I worked with a really great team. Um, Executive producer Jodie Boylan and David Galloway and a team of researchers. So TV is always a team effort. It's never an individual in that case, but and Sandra as well. We had a great team, and yeah, so that was, it was, they only did, I think, one season of it. So a lot of it was kind of adapted to Australia as well. Like, we came up with a lot of new stuff because every country's different and there's different things. So yeah, it was a great process, and it was amazing to see the response to it. I didn't expect that.
Yeah, absolutely. So similarly with a Fight for Planet A, Our Climate Challenge, did you find that it was easy to get funding and support for an environmental documentary?
Look, I think partly because of the support, well, look, it's an interesting question. I think that fortunately the debate has moved on a little bit, so that we were able to say we want to do a show about the solutions to climate change, rather than, I think, 5, 10 years ago it would be about, is there climate change?
Yeah.
And I didn't want to get involved in that debate because it's a ridiculous debate. It's well and truly solved, and you're just really pandering to 10% of the population who are refusing to listen to the evidence. So I think it was good. Like, it took a lot of effort to get it up, but there was a lot of support there as well.
Yeah. So for Fight for Planet A, Our Climate Challenge, which is on August 11th, in the show it seems you will be discussing the many simple things people can do to reduce their impact on the environment. Do you feel pressure to ensure you role model these behaviours in your own life?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, a lot of these things are things that I've been trying to do over years. Um, I'm not, though, of the opinion that everyone's perfect. So I think that can be a bit of a barrier sometimes. So I think what we should be trying to do is realizing it's a process. It takes time. So pick some of the things that are easiest for you first and do those, and then move to the next one over time. And don't try and change all of your habits overnight. Let me see. That's an alarm telling me to talk to you. um, so don't try and do it all at once. So yeah, I'm not perfect at all, but I have, over the years, though, definitely managed to reduce my carbon footprint. The one I struggle the most with is food.
Yeah.
I'm not a vegan, but I do also try and avoid high carbon intensive meats and foods.
Yeah.
So
No,
yeah,
really.
it's a journey over time.
No,
But
that's
also, just so you know as well, the show is not just about reducing our own footprints. It does also focus on the fact that there's some businesses and government decisions that need to be made that probably have a capacity to have a big impact.
yeah, absolutely. So in your view, what characteristics make a good environmental leader?
That's a tough one. Firstly, I don't consider myself an environmental leader at all, just so you know. So, I mean, I'm doing shows that are seeking solutions. I'm not really an environmental campaigner
Yeah.
as such. There's a lot of great people out there that do that. There's a lot of really passionate people that I speak to who spend every day out there on the front line and trying to stop change that they think is damaging for the environment. And I wouldn't say that I'm on that level at all. I'm more, I guess, investigating solutions. And yeah, but what makes good, I guess, I think people who are passionate about it, but it's also sometimes useful to be understanding of those that don't have the same opinions.
Yeah, absolutely. So sadly, the science of climate change is often considered debatable. Obviously, this is frightening considering the seriousness of climate change. How do we overcome this?
Look, I actually don't think we should get too caught up in that at the moment. If you actually look at it statistically, it's a very small percentage of the population that actually don't believe that climate change is real.
Yeah.
I think a lot of time is wasted trying to change their minds. Now, if you actually look at the kind of psychology of climate denial, these people are not, it's not that they're sitting there waiting for a fact to change their mind. It's that they've made up their mind and they're seeking out facts that simply show that to be the case. So I think it's a little waste of time, to be honest, to be engaging with that. I think that we should be calling out where that information comes from. For instance, if it's funded through fossil fuel companies and it's funded through PR companies that have links to fossil fuel companies, if it's part of a process of encouraging intentional denial, then that should be pointed out. But I don't think we should waste a lot of time. Is that, it's much more important to talk to let's say the 50% of the population. There's 80% of the population agree that climate change is real. About that. It's much more important to speak to the kind of 40 or 50% of those people who are likely to actually make changes in their lives and changes to, and campaign for changes than it is to speak to the 10% who have already made up their mind that it's not happening. It's just a waste of your time.
So you seem to be a brave person. You have confronted a prime minister with a plastic axe and a chainsaw. You've stood in your Speedos whilst the media surrounded you. And you have infiltrated the APEC conference involving the former president of the United States, Barack Obama. You have now managed to pursue a subject, climate change, that many would stay clear of because of how politicized it has become. My question is, do you think people need to be a little braver in facing climate change so that old habits can be broken and new, more environmentally conscious habits can be established?
Okay, a few levels to that. Firstly, I wouldn't say I'm brave, just occasionally stupid. Secondly, I wasn't in the APEC car, actually, so we were going to do a stunt later that day. It was actually George W. Bush, the president at that time. That's how old I am. But yeah, look, I think there's a lot of brave people out there fighting for change in this space. There's a lot of people who are kind of out there campaigning. There's a lot of students, actually. The student climate movement has been really effective, I think, more effective than a lot, actually, in terms of getting people motivated. And I think they're very brave in what they're doing. So, look, I think there's a great deal of bravery out there. I think everyone can try and be a little bit more brave and take on this issue. But it also, one thing that's interesting is that, with the families we deal with, a lot of the decisions you can make to reduce your carbon footprint aren't really about bravery. They're quite easy in some cases and often save you money. It's more about knowledge. It's more about understanding it. Like waste is a really tangible thing. You see it and people understand that. We need to kind of get to the level where we really understand where carbon emissions are coming from and how to change it. And I think that hopefully will be part of the show.
Absolutely. So deforestation, plastic pollution, rising sea levels and atmospheric pollution and land degradation all intersect to make environmental concerns very worrisome. Do you think that people find it hard to link these together, hence the lack of action we see from some people?
Yeah, I think it is hard to link together. It's interesting how people tend to focus on one different aspect of that and don't necessarily link them together. I mean, there's obviously some people out there that do campaign heavily on the kind of effects altogether. But yeah, I think linking them together does help and will hopefully get activation or get people being active about it. I think one of the problems sometimes with a lot of these things is that people can feel detached from it, or people feel like the problem's so big I can't do anything about it. So that's, I think the interesting thing about climate is that we're not detached from it. A lot of the things we do have an impact. Not saying it's the total impact, but we have a lot of power to make change there.
Yeah, absolutely. So based on the action that is taken currently with people, how do you realistically think the world will look in 2050?
Okay. Look, I do feel pretty positive overall. I think that fortunately we've had a lot of kind of technological change that's happened to mean that we can solve the problem of climate change a lot more easily. Unfortunately, the fact that we have delayed it so long already means that we've kind of baked in some of the changes already. Like there will be things happening in 2050 because of what we've done in these decades now, unfortunately. And I feel particularly guilty about that, having kids of my own. And you, I mean, I don't want to have you, Michaela, either. But yeah, so I think that, look, I think I'm really positive. I do feel like we're turning a corner. I do feel like some of the kind of vested interests are starting to lose the debate. I think we've seen that the coal lobby particularly is probably starting to lose out. The gas lobby is taking over. So that's the kind of next challenge. But I think that overall we are starting to move in the right direction, and I hope that that'll become a quicker process, because every second we delay, unfortunately, creates more negative effects in the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. So as a 17-year-old, I can sometimes get a bit worried and overwhelmed that those in positions of power aren't doing enough to combat the effects of climate change and create sustainable solutions. What would be your advice to me, and what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I agree with you. Look, I get frustrated as well, watching the lack of change at that level. I think that you should keep up doing what you're doing, basically. Like, if you can convince those around you to become more active and write letters to politicians and contact your local member and be active in your community and make changes, then I think that that will have an effect. It can sometimes feel overwhelming because it feels like you're just one person, but you always need to remember, one can become two, can become 20, can become 50, can become a million. And that's really what it's about.
Absolutely. So you mentioned your kids before. Do you speak with your children about climate change? And if so, how do you first broach the subject?
Well, I think they're very aware of climate change. Obviously, it's something that, it's hard to avoid nowadays. I still think that there are times that the links between their actions and climate might feel, aren't necessarily clear. And that's partly what we're looking at in this show. Um, I'm not a big lecturer about things, or not about that, but you hope that they kind of, you lead by example, and they'll hopefully do similar things in their life.
Absolutely. So I have a bit of a word association game. So can
Oh,
you
no.
say the first thing that comes to mind when you hear the following?
Yeah, okay.
So Greta Thunberg,
Hero.
the Arctic,
Scared.
the Chaser,
Fun.
David Attenborough,
Another leader.
Sammy J.
Inspiring. So it's great. You spoke to him the other day, though. You're setting me up there.
And then I just have one last question to ask you, which is,
Yeah.
what is your next challenge, and will it have an environmental focus?
So my next challenge is, I guess, looking more broadly at how democracy works. And that's not only for environmental reasons, but environment is something that's affected by that a lot. I think that if we had a different kind of incentive system in our political system, then maybe we would have seen some more change on climate change earlier and a lot of other issues. So that's kind of what I'm focused on at the moment.
No, that's amazing. Thank you so much for doing this interview with me. It means a lot, especially with your busy schedule.
Thanks, Michaela. See you, bye.